Folks, allow me to introduce the wonderful Caroline Proulx. I've known Caroline since, it's been a while. It's what, 2006 that we've
I think
backstory?
2005.
2005, fair enough.
Ooh, yeah.
Um, so Caroline has started a public. She's working with a public accounting firm here in Ottawa called Welch LLP, and she's been with them for 3.5 years. Prior to that, prior to working with Welch, she's worked for the CPA called Patrick Blake in Midland, Ontario, and she's been working on the accounting industry for 12 years. And she's done a mixture of public accounting and industrial. Majority of the career has been working on the preparation and compilation of financial statements and corporate tax returns. And so she's the person that brings you that happiness at the end of the day, going, thank you for filling out my blanks because I'm going to fill them out wrong. And on a personal note, my moving the decimals around, one time the government was going to owe me a lot of money, and I knew that was all wrong. So she's the type of person that fixes that. She also has now recently shifted to cloud accounting solutions for small to medium businesses. And this is a new service line offered through Welsh LLP. It's called Elevate. And I'm going to stop talking now, and I'm going to hand it over to Caroline.
Hey, everybody. It's so nice to see all of you. Uh, I'm not a presenter. I don't typically present, so I'm a newbie at this. So I'm excited to present for the very first time to all of you. I'm just going to share my screen. So I've based this presentation on someone who's incorporated. If you're not incorporated, I just want to make a note that the amount of detail that's required is not as significant as a corporation, where if you're self-employed, you don't typically need to have a balance sheet. It's always good to have a balance sheet. So some things I'll cover, your accountant may not ask you for certain things if you are self-employed. So I just want to let you know, but we're going to go over everything like you were incorporated. And like I said, it's always good to keep track of your balance sheet if you're not. So this is, Bernie did a really good introduction. I studied at Georgian College, which is in Barrie, Ontario. And I first started working in public accounting as a co-op student at a public firm. And I loved it and continued to work there through college and completed and was offered a full-time position. I realized very quickly that I lacked certain experience on the bookkeeping side. People were calling me, asking me for advice on how to run their operations. I had no experience. So I ended up leaving public accounting for a short time just to gain more knowledge of what it was like to work inside a business and keeping track of the books. So I did that for about 1.5 years and realized that I really enjoyed public accounting and I really enjoyed helping clients with what they need, and I enjoy the variety. I know that it can be very weird to hear someone say that they like accounting because it's not typically something that people enjoy, but you know, I've been doing it for so long, and I'm excited right now because the industry is changing very rapidly. So I'm excited to be a part of the change. First, I think what's important is to know what's important when you are doing your bookkeeping, when you are keeping track of your business. And I think sometimes people may not know what is really important to keep track of. So we'll go over a list of what I think as business owners you should be paying attention to. I'm going to offer some tips on how to stay organized, because that can also be very tricky, especially now that we're changed to a digital world. Staying organized digitally is more of a challenge than having physical documents and papers. And when do you get help? You know, that's a good question, because when you're starting out, you may be in a place where you can do it all of yourself. But when do you know that you need to get some extra help? So these are things that are important. Obviously, deadlines. You need to know what are your requirements, what are you required to file, and when are you required to file. Organization, extremely important because of the big CRA. CRA comes knocking on your door saying, you know what, you did great, you made your deadline, you filed on time. Now prove what you filed is true. And the best way to do that is to be organized. And we also want to create, we want to improve our efficiency. We don't want to be wasting time manually entering data when that's not something we need to do anymore. We don't need to enter data anymore. We have the tools that can do it for us. And everything is connected now. You can connect everything so that all of your softwares are up to date and your books are up to date. And another big important piece that I find doesn't get enough attention is planning for your future, planning for your retirement and strategies. I see too many people not making that effort to do that planning, and I've seen it where, you know, someone has ended up paying more tax due to poor planning. So we want to make sure that you're organized, you're efficient, and you can plan for your future so you can keep more money in your pockets in the long run. So tips on staying organized. Tools. There's so many tools out there for businesses to help you stay on track. And obviously the first one's going to be a bookkeeping software. If you're doing bookkeeping, if you're hiring a bookkeeper, you know, you may want to learn how to use the software so you can go in and check your numbers, check your reports, or you're doing it yourself. Another organization tool that I love and that I get really great feedback from clients is Receipt Bank. This is basically a digital filing cabinet. You can get an app on your phone. You can drag and drop. You can forward emails to the software, and this software connects to your accounting software, so they can connect to a number, not just QuickBooks Online, they can connect to a number of different softwares like Xero, and I know they have others as well. I don't know off the top of my head all of them, but I work with QuickBooks Online, so that's why I mentioned that. Clients love Receipt Bank. It saves so much time when COVID is over and we can go back out to the restaurants and we can entertain our clients. Before you even leave the table, you take a photo on your phone of the receipt, and it's gone into the cloud, into Receipt Bank. And then later you can log into your Receipt Bank account. You check off that, yes, this is meals and entertainment. You hit publish, boom, it's in your books and it's allocated appropriately. The taxes are accounted for. And then the best feature that I think of for Receipt Bank is it attaches a copy of the receipt to your transaction in your books. So CRA comes knocking on your door. They're like, you spent this much on meals and entertainment. I need receipts. You can just go right into your books, click on the transaction, and there's the receipt. You don't have to dig around in a filing cabinet trying to find it. And another great feature for Receipt Bank is that it will actually store your data for 10 years free of charge. So I think that's an amazing feature. So if you, let's just say something happened and it wasn't in QuickBooks, for some reason it wasn't attached to the transaction, you can go into Receipt Bank and everything is there. You can find all your receipts in there as well, and it's stored for 10 years. MileIQ, I suggested as a tool. I see a lot of people who do business travel and they use their personal vehicle and they don't track their mileage. And this is something that I have seen CRA pick at. And I've seen people lose this deduction due to poor records. So a mileage logbook is required by CRA, and MileIQ just automates it for you. It'll know when you're in your car. You can log the trip. You can say, was it business? Was it personal? And then it also connects to QuickBooks Online um, to help with you keep everything organized. Now, I'm just wondering, does anyone have any questions about any business tools? Does anyone have any business tools or software that they use right now that they would want to suggest?
Well, I was going to ask just on your previous slide for the getting the planning out your year, right? Um, would you work off of a 10-year business plan and then like do like a large corporate plan or corporate large plan and then break it down and how that year should unfold and then adjust and adapt and then work with your bookkeeper or accounting firm or accountant to like milestones, like if you don't file on a given date, how much of an ouch factor is there penalty
Okay,
wise?
so for deadlines, if you don't meet your deadlines, 5% penalty on the balance owing for like tax deadlines, 5% on your balance owing, and then 1% for late payment. So it can be significant if you have a large balance owing. Also, a lot of deadlines that people do not make are installment requirements. So if you are required to make installments from CRA and you do not make them throughout the year, they will ding you a penalty as well. And those penalties, I don't know what they are, and it's also a very weird way that they calculate it, because sometimes people make installments and they made enough, but they didn't make enough installments that they were told to, so they still got dinged a penalty. So it's always best to follow the installment schedule that CRA provides,
Okay.
because that's another way. That's the most common penalty that I see people face is the installment requirements.
Is that
And that's
is that a,
for, sorry, go ahead, Bernie.
is that a business expense you can write off?
No, well, it is a business expense, but it's not considered an expense for tax purposes. So it would be added
Okay.
back into your income, and you would just, yeah. So
Okay.
yeah. And as for planning, what I mean by planning, it's looking at your current situation. Are you self-employed part of the time? Is it your side hustle and you're full-time and you have full-time employment? How are you going to pay yourself? Are you going to pay yourself a salary? Are you going to be paying dividends? There's a lot of different situations that people would take different routes. So it's for planning, it's always best to speak to a tax accountant so that they can see your situation, because everyone's situation is different. There's no one size fits all. Things will depend if you have children, or when do you plan on retiring, and what tax bracket are you in. So it's very personal.
Okay.
Tax planning is very personal.
So for the and I'm now going back to your tools. Sorry,
No, go ahead.
I actually use the QuickBooks and I use the receipt bank, and it was very successful. Like once you take the picture and you told it this is the one vendor. So if it's a restaurant, and, usually it has a sense of what's going on. I take a picture of the receipt and the point of sale ticker tape receipt too, side by side, and they actually calculate everything. That was a suggestion you gave me a while back. That worked out really well, as opposed to me trying to figure it out, because that was thumbs, screen, small screen, decimals move around, things happen. Nothing's ever pretty. I've found that.
Receipt Bank's by far my favorite software tool, for sure.
So the mile IQ though, the mileage logbook, that one I'm still trying to get I'm using it,
Mm-hmm.
but I have to go back and now coordinate. So when I book a meeting on my calendar invite, will that help support the claim with the mileage IQ and then with the CRA inquiry if there is any?
I believe so. I've never had CRA tell me, like when I've done CRA reviews for mileage, it's basically been your mile log, how many kilometers did you travel personally? What did you travel for business? And just basically a log. And if you have a calendar and you can state meeting for this person, that's even better.
Yeah.
You're supporting your claim even more. But I mean, just having a mile log and writing it down should be sufficient. But just the more information you have, the better. Mileage is a tricky situation, and you just don't want to get into a position where CRA just disallows that entire claim, because it can be significant. Mileage can be significant, and I have seen entire claims be disallowed.
So does that matter if it's a personal vehicle or a company vehicle?
If it's a vehicle that's 100% business use, business owned, like corporation owned,
Mm-hmm.
there's no requirement to track mileage
Okay.
because it's 100% business. But if there's any personal use that goes on, it needs to be tracked. And then like we can get into more details, because then but like I said, if you have, this is always best to speak to your accountant, because then there can be scenarios where it becomes a taxable benefit. So you want to always speak to your accountant. If you have a corporation, just quickly speak to your accountant and ask them how you should go about tracking to avoid any additional tax that you don't want to put any more risk on yourself. So just always have a quick conversation with your accountant about your situation, and they'll tell you the best way to track your mileage and what requirements you have.
Okay. Thank you.
I just have a question about,
yep.
So with Receipt Bank, you're saying you think it can be used with a number, like I use Wave software.
I think it is compatible with Wave, but I'm not 100% sure.
So then so I have a bookkeeper. So then my bookkeeper could, if I put the receipts there, then she can.
Yep.
Could do the rest of it.
Yep. So I have my clients, they upload their receipts, and then I look at them and I classify them as, I allocate them to whatever expense account they need to go into. And if I think that more information is required, I can message from within the software app, and they'll get them. Yeah. So if you have the software downloaded onto your phone, you will get a message in the app. It'll say, sometimes like things get uploaded and it's hiding part of the name or the date, or there's something that we can't see, or we just need more clarification. We just send a message right in the app, and the client can respond right in the app. So
okay,
it's definitely it's a great, if out of all the softwares, I would recommend Receipt Bank out of everything.
Okay, that's great. Thanks.
Yep. And I think one reason the accountants love Receipt Bank is because it eliminates the shoebox. So I've had many clients in my day where I've been given a shoebox or a banker box, a couple of banker boxes. So it's accountants love Receipt Bank for sure. And also I want to go over, when you are sending your documents to your accountant, this is more for corporations. Your accountant's going to want bank statements, loan statements, copies of the capital assets that you've purchased. We'll go into more detail about the balance sheet items. It's best to have all of those documents ready to go when you send them to your accountant, so it eliminates the back and forth between you and the accountant, which in turn will lower and should lower your year-end bill, because there's not as much back and forth between the two of you. And I can't stress enough, monthly bookkeeping and reconciliations are by far the best way to stay organized. Don't let your books get out of control and fall behind. And I would always suggest doing a reconciliation of your bank. The bank is going to tell you if you're missing anything. If you do not reconcile your bank, you could have revenue that you didn't pick up, or you could have duplicated revenue and not even realize it. And then you end up either understating your revenue or overstating your revenue. You could duplicate expenses without knowing it. So the bank reconciliation and credit card reconciliation is really going to help you keep your books accurate. Also, there's other ways to also make sure your books are accurate, but this is the number one way to make sure that everything is flowing through your books correctly. Another way would be to keep track of your accounts receivable and your accounts payable as well. So this is just an example like of a balance sheet. And let's say you're getting your books ready for your accountant. Generally, for year-end purposes, the accountant is going to want supporting documents for everything that's on the balance sheet. They're going to want a supporting document for your bank account, which would be the cash category. So you need to provide a bank statement as of the end of the year, as of your year-end date, December 31st. Your accounts receivable, they'll want an aging summary report just to make sure that there's nothing that's been on there for a few years. And if there is, they'll ask you if it's collectible or not. And then based on how you answer, they'll make adjustments for you. Another area that I find gets missed is an inventory count at the end of the year. I don't think anyone in here has inventory for their business, so no need to worry. But let's say you start to sell products, you'll want to make sure you count your inventory at your year-end date. And anything that you have, like supplies on hand, prepaid insurance, all of these will require documentation. So go print your balance sheet at your year-end, go through the list and just grab all your supporting documents for each account. Make sure that, you know, your supporting documents match the balance. If they don't match the balance and you don't know why, then bring it up to your accountant or try to find out the reason why before you send it to your accountant. Is if you do not have your supporting documents match your account and the accountant has to investigate as to why, that's more money that you're spending for something that maybe you know the reason for it and you could just simply provide an explanation. Things like your common stock and your retained earnings, those are not typically, you don't typically need to have supporting document. Like common stock, you would have it like your first year when you first set up your corporation. But anything that's like any like current assets, any new property, plant, or equipment purchases, and then your liabilities. Except for tax payable, your accountant typically deals with this account. But if you're really keen on figuring out your tax payable account and doing all that, go right ahead and do that bookkeeping task if you'd like. But typically a tax accountant does that account for you because we have all the information about that account. Does anyone have any questions about balance sheet items?
So go ahead, Denny.
Oh, thank you.
Go ahead.
I have one question about stockholders' equity and, say, a small business owner. So me as a small business owner, I don't have stockholders. So would that just be left off of my balance sheet?
Are you incorporated?
We're not. We're a partnership.
A partnership, so then it would be, it's just called something different. It would be called owner's equity.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So they have different names, yeah.
So any of this information useful for any banking? So if you're looking, let's say you're about to go through a growth spurt and you're seeking funds either from a lending institution or venture capitalists, is this stuff required? Well, I guess it would be required, but Would you have to have it, let's say, at a certain point in time, or you'd have several years of information? This is kind of supports the strength of your business.
Typically, typically when we prepare financial statements, we always have a prior year comparative column. Like our statements do not look like this. This is just an example of the types of accounts that were on there.
Mm-hmm.
But typically we have a comparative for the prior year. Some banks, yes, they'll take unaudited financial statements and use them for financing for investors, and it depends on who's requesting the statements. They may request the statements to be audited. So it depends on who they're for.
Okay. Is that something that your firm would do then, and also as an overall service?
Yeah, so our firm does compilation, which is unaudited statements. We just verify and confirm that the accuracy of the balance sheet and the income statement. A review, and then we also do review and audit engagements as well, which require more work behind confirming the balances.
Does that have to be done by the same? Can it be done by the same firm, or do you have to use a separate firm to do an audit?
For so if your bookkeeping is, so that's an area I'm not 100% sure of. Sometimes the same place who does the bookkeeping can do an audit. Typically, but whoever does the bookkeeping should not be auditing the books.
Okay.
That should be separate. Yeah. There are ways around it when you go to a larger firm because there is separation there, but there are rules on it, and I'm not 100% sure of the rules. So that's something that would have to be looked into. So these are my top software choices. We went over them. I think I just talked a little bit too much about Receipt Bank, but
what's WagePoint?
WagePoint is a payroll software. They're a payroll provider. So I think if you have just a couple employees, it connects to QuickBooks. They have great support. They're just, and it's very easy to use. I would suggest WagePoint, but I mean, payroll providers they're all really good at what they do. I'm a fan of outsourcing payroll when you begin to have employees, just because they take care of everything. They take care of filing, remitting your payroll remittances. They keep track. They'll do the ROEs. They'll do your T4 summaries at the end of the year. So they're, and it's such a low cost. It's a very low cost. I think it's about $20 a month. Sorry, $20 a payroll, and then $2 per employee. So it's very reasonably priced. We do prepare T4s for people who do want to do payroll on their own. We at Elevate, we use WagePoint just because of how well it's priced. It's best to just have it go to WagePoint and have them process everything. It's very efficient. It's very economical. So
most of that software just save you labor with your outsourcing, either bookkeeping and accountant.
Yeah,
all
they
those
can just
options.
yeah, they can just do it at such a great price, and that's why we suggest it. So I think, like, I know a lot of people who start out on their own and you know, they're growing their business. They want to do the bookkeeping themselves, and that's great. I suggest doing that if you know, when you're just starting out and things are slow. But I see too often people wanting to do their own bookkeeping, and they just can't. They're too busy. They're busy focusing on growing their business. They're focusing on the operations of their business. And bookkeeping is one of those things that you can kind of push off doing until it bites you. And it's usually going to bite you in a year. So, and then it's end up going to cost you more. It's going to end up costing you more by neglecting and not seeking help when you should have. So a good rule of thumb is if you're falling behind, I would say if you're more than 3 months behind and you're consistently always behind, start looking in to see if someone can help you. We offer a great service at Elevate. We do monthly bookkeeping. We have different packages for different sizes of companies, and we personalize it to meet your needs. I've seen too many times people fall behind and then they miss out on the opportunity to plan. They miss out on the opportunity to, just basically save money. And it ends up costing them more because they didn't want to spend, I understand your business is starting, you want to keep your costs low, but what people don't see is that it actually costs you more money to avoid keeping track of things. And if your business if the complexity of your business is growing as well, you start maybe selling in different provinces or international, what are your requirements? If you have an e-commerce and you're selling in the US, all states have different rules about how much you can sell before you have to file and pay tax. And it's a lot of information. So, if it's becoming too complex and you don't have the time to do the research, hire someone even for consulting, just to know what your obligations are. And if you're one of those people who just avoids doing bookkeeping because you absolutely hate it, then I would suggest getting someone to help with it. The way, it's so nice to have your financials month to month ready to look at. You can make decisions from it. And it's just going to allow you to spend more time on doing what you love, which is what your business is, and growing and getting new customers. We love doing the bookkeeping. So, let us do that. We love, for me specifically, what I do at Welch is I onboard new clients. So I get clients who come in and some of them don't have any accounting software, or they're using a very old accounting software. I set them up on new accounting software. I set them up on the software that would be useful for their company. I teach them how to use it, and then we build processes together to ensure that they have up-to-date information and that they have constant communication with us every single month. And I really enjoyed it. So it's a new role for me at the firm, and I've been enjoying it. I've been really enjoying the whole building the software architecture. It's been a lot of fun.
So I got another question. If you're hosting a webinar and guests are coming in from outside the province, and there's associated fees, are there tax issues in from the person hails from, or is the business transaction considered done in Ontario? Let's say coming to connect to Ottawa.
I can't answer that right now, Bernie, because I think there are just recent changes made to the sales tax code.
Okay.
Yeah, I just got the email a few days ago, and I haven't read enough about what the changes are.
Okay.
But if you have a question about that, definitely shoot me an email and I can.
Okay.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, definitely don't hesitate to ask, that's for sure. Anyway, so that's pretty much it. This is how you can contact me if you have questions, or you want to get to know a little bit more about what we offer, or you just want to chat about software. That's always fun. Chat about bookkeeping. But no, we Elevate offers all sorts of packages to help small business owners, and we love helping people. So